Let's continue on with more discussions of crimes against public disorder. This category of offenses includes many alcohol and drug-related offenses. In Pennsylvania, we do have a statute that prohibits public drunkenness and similar misconduct. And we can see that under Pennsylvania law, it's a summary offense, which means that the person, if they're found guilty, will not face jail time. They'll have to pay a fine. But if a person appears in any public place manifestly under the influence of alcohol or controlled substance, they're guilty of public drunkenness. Now, some of the key words in this provision in this particular statute, are such things as manifestly under the influence of alcohol or controlled substance. So what that means is that a person has to be obviously drunk or under a controlled substance, the influence of a controlled substance. So if someone is just a little bit tipsy, that will not be public drunkenness. Manifestly means that they are clearly, obviously, undeniably under the influence of alcohol. So they're stumbling, they're falling over, whatever it may be. So it could be alcohol, it could be a controlled substance, it could be marijuana, it could be, any other kind of drug. But you're guilty of a summary offense. So again, there may be people listening to this lecture who have personal experience with this particular statute in Pennsylvania. So you're very familiar with how much the fine will cost you, etc., etc., etc. We also obviously have laws that prohibit driving under the influence of either alcohol or other substances. The limit, the blood alcohol limit that is the maximum BAC, used to be 0.1, but many states have lowered that to 0.08, and we may even find it lower in some areas, and especially for minors who are driving. So we've become much stricter with driving under the influence of alcohol and other substances, and after many decades of neglect, and because of the actions of groups like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, in the past several decades, states have concentrated more and more on preventing drunk driving and punishing it. And so again, they become even stricter with the blood alcohol levels. So 0.08 is the standard now in Pennsylvania. Another kind of public disorder crime that's associated with alcohol is possession of alcohol by minors. So obviously, and again, people listening to this particular lecture may have encountered the police with this topic. Obviously, throughout the United States, anyone under 21 years old cannot possess alcohol. There are some states that have tried to reduce that down to 18 again, because they believe that it's actually safer for the public, because they'd rather have minors drinking in bars than drinking in in private homes, or out in the woods, in illegal parties, whatever it may be, things that you did when you were under 21, or maybe you're still under 21 and are doing. But those states believe kids are going to consume alcohol, they're going to drink alcohol anyway, whether it's illegal or not. They'd rather have them drink it in a bar where there are at least people who are sober and responsible, and where there may be less drinking, or at least safer drinking in those locations. But the federal government has been very adamant about requiring a 21-year-old minimum drinking age. Otherwise, states can lose federal highway money and all kinds of other resources. So 21, as we all know, is the minimum age for possessing alcohol. There are three kinds of crimes against public disorder that deal with causing major disturbances, and each of these are connected to the other. They're basically a sequence of crimes. So unlawful assembly, rout, and riot are really all part of the same behavior, with riot as we'll see, being the final step, and unlawful assembly being the first step, and rout being a step in between. So with unlawful assembly, this is when 3 or more people are meeting, and their purpose for meeting is to disturb the public peace, with the purpose of participating in a forcible or violent execution of an unlawful enterprise or of a lawful enterprise in an unauthorized manner. So, to put it in plainer English, 3 or more people get together. Their purpose is they're gathering together because they plan to commit some kind of violent crime, or they want to engage in some kind of lawful behavior, but in an unauthorized, typically violent manner. And so this is the first stage of some kind of violent plan. This is just the 3 people getting together. And so we don't just punish 3 people getting together, but we have to be able to prove that their purpose for getting together was to carry out this violent crime or this other kind of crime that may be included in the statute. So they don't have to actually carry out their plan. They don't have to actually take any steps towards carrying out that plan. Their crime is getting together to actually prepare to carry out the plan. If they actually do take steps to carry out their violent plan, then that is defined as a rout. So we often only think of rout as connected with maybe a sports team really beating, decimating another team. So it was a rout, the game was a rout, whatever it was. But in the law, rout refers to unlawful assembly plus at least one act in furtherance of the plan. So they don't have to actually, the people don't actually have to succeed in completing their crime. But if they take steps towards completing it, it has now gone from unlawful assembly to rout. If they actually complete their plan and they engage in group violent behavior, this can be defined as riot. So again, these 3 crimes are really a progression. Unlawful assembly, just getting together. Rout, getting together and committing an act but not completing the crime. Riot, getting together, taking steps to complete the plan and actually completing the plan. One more crime that we'll cover in this particular lecture is harassment. So you can see from the list it includes many things: insults, challenges, phone calls, other means of inciting an individual to violence, subjecting another to offensive touching, engaging in alarming conduct, making repeated communications anonymously or at times that are inconvenient to the recipient. So this isn't just a normal insult. For instance, your shoes are ugly. That would not be harassment. But this is what it becomes. It's an insult, it's a challenge, it's a phone call, that tends to incite someone to violence. So this could be fighting words, like we talked about before. We could also, beyond fighting words, this could be subjecting another to offensive touching. So you keep pushing them, you keep doing something to them to annoy them. This could be engaging in alarming conduct. So you're trying to scare them. You're trying, and again, this isn't just some kid trying to do it as a prank, but this is really meaning to alarm that person, to put them in fear. This could be making repeated communications anonymously or at times that are inconvenient. So you keep calling the person up and hanging up on them, and they don't know who it is, or you make obscene phone calls to them, or whatever it may be. Or you're making, even if they know who you are, your former boyfriend or girlfriend, and you keep calling them at 3 a.m., then that could be harassment because you're calling them at times that are inconvenient to the recipient, to the person. So any of these kinds of things and even some other behaviors could be construed as harassment, and you could be cited for harassment, you could be charged with it. We often, as you can see here, in many states we have different degrees of harassment. So you might just face, if it's just relatively minor, it didn't put the person in great inconvenience or fear, then it's a lesser kind of harassment. But if you are really stalking the person. If you are continuously harassing them, then it could be more, you could be facing more severe charges of harassment.